G'day guys, welcome back. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching my content. I do appreciate it. You are here because you are some of the greatest rugby fans in the world. And also, it's Tuesday and it's time to read the rugby news. So yeah, first up, the URC on the weekend finished their regular season, round 18. And going into next week will be the quarterfinals. So yeah, the top 8 makes it into the quarterfinals. And there was some controversial results on the weekend. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. So let's go through the results. The Stormers has beat Benetton 38 points to 22. Ulster beat Edinburgh on the weekend, 28 points to 18. The Lions beat Zebra, 50 points to 35. The Bulls beat Leinster, 62 points to 7. This was a Leinster B team, and this has ended Leinster's basically undefeated run for quite some time now. Dragons beat Scarlet, 31 points to 14. The controversial one that we're going to talk about in a minute is the Sharks versus Munster, 22 points apiece. And Ospreys lost to Cardiff, 21 points to 38. And finally, the Glasgow Warriors beat Connacht, 29 points to 27. So going into the quarterfinals this weekend, Ulster will be hosting Connacht on Saturday. Stormers will be hosting the Bulls, the South African teams at home in South Africa. Leinster will be hosting the Sharks. As you can see, the draw for the Sharks has really hurt them, as they will be barely scraping. They're basically ranked 8th, and they will be playing the Leinster, the top team in Ireland, which will be, again, the traveling will be such a big toll on the players, especially against Leinster. And finally, Glasgow Warriors will be hosting Munster for the final game of the elimination rounds. So yeah, let's have a look at what happened here. Sharks versus Munster. There was a lot of controversy out of this game. The Sharks basically came out with a comfortable lead, 22 points to 3. For about 50 minutes of the game. And then Affolete Fasi gets a yellow card for a cynical penalty. And the game just completely turned around in the favor of Munster. And yeah, event resulting in Munster getting 19 unanswered points to come out with a draw. There was a couple of really controversial decisions by the referee. Mike Adamson. We know Mike Adamson is suffering from grand delusion. He can't tell the difference between forward passes. But yeah, this weekend, I saw something new. Apparently, he can't tell the difference between a knock-on and, he doesn't know what knock-on anymore, right? There was one point where it was really late in the second half. The Sharks was quite, was under the pump. They were finally getting themselves some territory inside the Munster half. They had a scrum 22 meters out, an opportunity for a penalty, which will be huge for the team, considering this was really late in the game. The number 8 grabbed the ball and, made a run. And the referee immediately called a knock-on. Okay? Everybody's confused. The replay showed the number 8 just picked up the ball and ran. I don't know. There was apparently a knock-on. Mike Adamson saw, I don't know, maybe he was watching a different game. I don't know what he saw, but he apparently saw a knock-on. Mike Adamson. And that was not the controversial part. The controversial part was one of the tries, right? So we can have a look at the highlights here. One of the tries, this player had his foot on the line whilst grounding the ball. Okay, so albeit this was, so there was like a lot of confusion why this was given. The TMO clearly didn't know the rules. This was an absolutely completely wrong decision. So the final whistle here, you can go watch it yourself, explained why this was an issue. So basically, if your foot is on the line and you have possession of the ball, it's out. Okay? So everybody knows that. But there is an exception. If your foot is on the line, like if you're out, but you touch the ball while you touch the ball while it's grounded, while the ball is like on the ground. So if the only touch of the ball is when the ball is grounded in goal, then it's still a try. Apparently that's the rules. So the TMO basically ruled that this player touched the ball when it was on the ground, right, and ruled it a try, despite the footage clearly showed that he had control of the ball before he had his hand on the ball, essentially, before the ball touched the ground. So which should have been a no try. So yeah, this was really obvious. There was a lot of booing going on when this try was given So yeah, this was just really horrendous refereeing. And this really cost the Sharks, because a draw meant that the Sharks finished 8th instead of potentially maybe 7th or even 6th. And this really made it difficult for the Sharks going into the next round, as we saw that they will be playing against Leinster. So yeah, Mike Adamson, man, it's just, yeah, I thought the knock-on was probably the worst one for me, because this one is really confusing. This is more of the TMO's fault, not knowing the rule, essentially. How do you become a professional referee and not knowing the rules? It blows my mind. Maybe I can get a job because I don't know the rules either. I mean, hey, who knows, right? But yeah, it is what it is. It really disappointing for South Africans. And also out of this game, big injury. Kolisi just rolled his knee on one of the tackles. It didn't look good. It was, in fact, yeah, it was tackled on the sideline, I think it was, and rolled his knee. He was holding his knee and he's taken now off the field. And it's an ACL. And there could potentially be a 9-month recovery, which means he might miss out the Rugby World Cup. The captain, Springbok captain. That is really, really bad news for the South Africans. Obviously, the other team that was playing, the Stormers, also had a couple injuries playing against Benetton. Ruben van Harden and Ernst van Ryn, both injured out of this game. But the obviously, there was some talk from last week from the Springboks. Jack Ninaba, the head coach, has decided to leave the Springboks by the end of the Rugby World Cup. So there was some talks about who's going to replace him. So Victor Matfield came out and named his preference for the Springboks head coach after Ninamba leaving. So John Ackerman is his number one choice. Franco Smith and Johan van Graan is the third option. So actually his what's his name? Victor Matfield's preference is Ackerman and then Van Graan as the second option for the Springboks head coach. So Ackerman is currently coaching the Lions, and Van Graan is coaching in Munster in Ireland. So yeah, two names that is on the radar for Victor Matfield for the Springboks coach. And obviously, the Cold War continues here in Australia. It's actually really funny. I want to have a talk about this a little bit because if you watch my channel, you know that I don't watch rugby league. Like maybe one game, the State of Origin, Decider, and even that I just watch it like maybe whilst doing something else, right? So it's something that I don't watch. I don't talk about rugby league, and in fact, I've never talked about rugby league as much as I have done in the past maybe month, and that is Australian rugby's fault. Because quite frankly, if you keep talking about rugby league, I'm watching rugby league now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm watching the Roosters. I'm watching the Dolphins, who's being a new team that's being added. So yeah, Rugby Australia, you're doing a great job promoting rugby league to the rugby union fans. Because for the first time, I watched rugby league and I realized the product is much better than Super Rugby League. Believe it or not. And despite how boring I find rugby league is, the overall spectacle as a sport is presented a lot better than Super Rugby. There's no empty stadiums. There's some stupid referees as well. But there's just, overall the presentation of the product is just much, much better delivered. And it's a free for me to watch on TV. So thanks Rugby Australia. I really appreciate you introducing me to rugby league. But keep spending that money on Joseph Swali'i, who I watched, by the way, can't make a bloody tackle for the Roosters. Yes, 1.6 million for somebody who can't make a tackle is great money spent. But anyway, so Rugby League came out last week. Peter V'landys, the head of the Rugby League chairman, has announced that the Rugby League teams, because the Rugby League have a salary cap, the teams will have an allocation of an additional $1 million if they were to hire somebody that is playing rugby union. And he's not just targeting Rugby Australia, because let's face it, there really isn't that many talent that you can target for Rugby Australia outside of maybe Jorgensen, the new guy. There really isn't much talent to target at Rugby Australia. So Peter V'landys is actually targeting at a lot of players potentially from overseas to jump code to play rugby league in Australia. So $1 million over the salary cap. There was a lot of discussions this week as well. I watched a lot of rugby league content, believe it or not. There was a lot of discussion in the rugby league pundits that this was apparently already a thing in the early 2000s when rugby union poached Takiri, poached Matt Rogers. So rugby league already had this contingency in the past, maybe 20 years ago. When it was introduced like 20 years ago, it was basically nobody used it. Like nobody actually went out and poached rugby union players because it was just not necessary because there was so much abundance of talent already in rugby league. So yeah, again, this was introduced. A lot of pundits were just saying this is probably not needed. No one's going to actually need this money. In fact, this presented a loophole for rugby league to breach the salary cap. You can have somebody go over to play rugby union for a year and get them back, basically allowing you to have a higher salary, to pay them the money outside of your salary cap, and basically having a big advantage for your team to be able to play, to be able to have a higher cap essentially for your makeup. So yeah, that's something that they were talking about as a potential loophole, and they were also talking about people like, if you can't make it in rugby union, why would you go out and spend extra money to get them back? You can just, you can probably do better without spending that money. Essentially, a lot of people have seen this as just unnecessary and unneeded. But hey, the Cold War has started, and Vlanders is really to fight for every inch. And with that being said, the big name, the big boy. Oops, I just closed it. The big boy, the big news is that, let's find a picture of him somewhere in here. Maybe we can get a picture. No, but the big boy, the big name on the big signing is that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has signed to go back to rugby league in 2024. So after the Rugby World Cup, he will be leaving the All Blacks, ending his run with the All Blacks. He really didn't get much time for the All Blacks. He had 3 games, maybe for the All Blacks, maybe 5. I think 3. He really didn't get much time for the All Blacks, and his season for the Blues was okay. And so far, it hasn't really been, showing that dominance, showing that he was Dally M medal winner for rugby league two times, Dally M winner. So he really hasn't shown that dominance that he had in rugby league. Hasn't really transferred that to union. Again, the game has changed so much since, even 2005, even, the game has changed so much. There's so much more kicking involved in this game. There's so much more intricacies in playing like a center, in the breakdowns, in the defense. So yeah, it's really not a game that it used to be like 20 years ago. You can just get some rugby league player to convert over and have them, transition into the game quite easily. It really isn't the case anymore. So with all that talks about transitioning and all that sort of talks about poaching players for rugby league, it might not even be good for rugby union to poach rugby league players, period. Because, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is one of the best in rugby league, and he really, let's frank, not able to adapt in the time that's given to him. He probably needed another couple of years in terms of game time to probably be fully able to get the level to fully flourish in the role as a center for rugby league. So yeah, obviously this leads to the discussion what Rugby Australia is doing, trying to poach players. Because yeah, if Roger Tuivasa-Sheck can't adapt to the current style of international test rugby, how do you expect somebody like Joseph Suaalii, who hasn't even proved himself in rugby league, to adapt to union? All right, you're gonna have to give him a lot of time to really reach his peak, to really to get your money's worth, to get him to switch code. So yeah, it's really something that's quite interesting because and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck as well. There was a lot of talks that he might go to the Roosters, but he will be going to the New Zealand Warriors. Again, there was people. Obviously, there's a lot of money flowing around. Paying House is not a player that's been talking about considering switch to union for the money. But like I said, the question now is not really who can we get from rugby league. The question now is, can rugby league players even adapt to rugby union without a history of playing union in the past? If you haven't played even with players like not just Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, players like what's his name? Vinavalu, right? Even players like Vinavalu can't even make a break in the Wallabies. You might say Tuivasa-Sheck can't make it because the All Blacks has such a high quality player pool. It's really hard for him. Vinavalu, Suliasi Vinavalu, multiple championship winner with the Storms, Melbourne Storm, couldn't make it in the Wallabies. Yeah. So maybe it's a question. It's not about, who should we bring over? Maybe the question is it even feasible anymore? Is it even possible to bring a rugby league player over and have them adapt to rugby union in a short period of time? And in fact, I think the answer is already speaking. Evidence is pointing that it's probably not going to be possible anymore. So, yeah, we shall see how that goes. But anyway, let's go to Super Rugby round 9. Again, another bye round with only 4 games being played. The Chiefs beat the Endurers 50 points to 14. This was a really difficult game for the Endurers in the rain. Second game of the week was the Rebels hosting the Crusaders on the Friday night. This was really disappointing for me. The Rebels came out really strong, 22 points to 12 leading at halftime, and then just gave up basically in the second half. I was really angry, had a pretty angry review in this game. But yeah, it is what it is. The Crusaders came out second half. The Rebels was looking for a way out, tried to kick 3 points in the second half against the Crusaders, and they found it. They found a way out via losing to the Crusaders, right? And then the Blues beat the Waratahs. Again, the Waratahs traveled to travel to New Zealand with, I think, Michael Hooper, maybe a couple other players resting. It's just, yeah, it is what it is. I really felt like there should be resting players when it comes to playing Super Rugby because it's a World Cup year, so a lot of players get extra rest. It is what it is. And finally, the Western Force at home beat the Highlanders 20 points to 17. This was a poor performance by the Highlanders. The Force really kind of like had control of the game, firm control of the game, and then finished quite. I thought it was quite easily. The Highlanders did have injuries at the nine, I think. Not injuries, but did not bring their best team either, sort of thing. Like they had, I think, who was his name, Aaron Smith and Fukutava both out for this game. So yeah, 30 points to 17. The Force beat the Highlanders. And moving on, so yeah, the big news coming out of New Zealand. Dave Rennie turned down a role to coach the Blues. The current coach of the Blues is scheduled to be joining the All Blacks team, which is what's his name? Leo McDonald is going to be joining the All Blacks team next year with Razor. So there was an opening for the Blues, and Dave Rennie has declined to join the Blues. He's apparently in talks to coach a team in Japan and to link up with Wayne Smith at the Kobe Steelers. But yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I thought he would take that role. I mean, the Blues is one of the premier teams in New Zealand rugby, and to say no to that is a big decision. Next up, Stephen Perifetta and Nipo Laulata both faced a bit of injury out of the Blues game on the weekend as well, so that is a bit of an issue for them. So the Wallaby camp last week was reviewed that Eddie Jones came out, specifically named 2 new young stars that he was quite happy with. So Carter Gordon, he's already talked about him, going into the camp was quite impressive. And also Brad Wilkins was the flanker that Eddie Jones is quite impressed out of the training camp. And then the Waratahs, big boy, Reka Swinton, Lockie Reka Swinton has been banned again for reckless tackle from not last week, now the week before, but he didn't play this weekend. So it was announced last week that he was banned after the judiciary. He's, multiple offenders for dangerous tackles and red cards. So yeah, he was initially scheduled for 10 match ban for 10 weeks, reduced down to 7. So he's out of the action for 7 weeks all the way to June 3rd. That is really big ban. Marika Corambetti has been given the Geelong Eels medal for the Wallabies best player last year. Once again, he has played 9 test matches, but he got the most vote at 202 votes from his fellow teammates. So yeah, Corambetti gets another year as the Geelong Eels medalist. So yeah, let's go to Europe now. Finishing off the news. So the RFU obviously came out a couple months ago now, announcing that all the basically all the club level heights has been reduced to waist height. So now it's basically they made it a law that if a tackle is not made on waist height, it's straight up a penalty. Yes, they wanted to implement this across all community rugby, and there was a huge backlash because everybody knows how unfeasible that is to make all tackles waist high, otherwise it's a penalty. So they have, I guess, relented a little bit, moving up the tackle height from hips to basically stomach. So they moved up about 6 inches in the tackle height. Still quite low, quite difficult to implement for all levels of rugby. But yeah, RFU is just budged a tiny bit, 6 inches or so. So it's been written into the laws now for RFU starting on 1st of July. Some really like key differences is that now the ball carrier, the onus is also on the ball carrier to make sure that going into the tackle is safe. So the ball carrier no longer lower their tackle height significantly, go into a tackle. So you can't just dip into a tackle, so that you're increasing the difficulties for the ball for the tackler to make on your waist essentially. So you can't do that anymore. And also, the tackle has been officially lowered to sternum. So anything above sternum is gonna be a penalty. So if you tackle someone on shoulder height, it's gonna be a penalty. So yeah, the RFU really changing the game for everyone. So yeah, obviously the financial issues in the RFU. Jack Willis is one of the players leaving England Rugby. He will be going to France to play for Toulouse, and he has come out and basically stated that it's not financially feasible for him to stay in the Premiership, and he decided to leave for France. Jack Noel has been fined £10,000 for criticizing the referee on Twitter. So yes, you're not allowed to say anything. So he basically tweeted out saying that he said that, and I quote, "I'm actually shocked, shocked. What the hell is happening? One of the worst decisions I've ever seen, ever." So after tweeting this, he was cited by the judiciary in the Premiership. I mean, this is how they're gonna make their money back, right? This is how they make money for their bankrupt clubs, right? So the Premiership fined him £10,000 for criticizing the referee. There was some, Kyle Dickinson was, giving out a penalty try. Was a bit of controversial, but or whatever, not allowed to the referee. Finally, finishing off the news this week on Wales, 2 big names, Gareth Anscombe and Dan Lydiate are both set to leave the Ospreys at the end of their contract. So no idea where they're going to be going yet, but 2 big names leaving the Ospreys. Obviously, Wales is not a union that is under a lot of financial troubles at the moment. So we already saw Will Rollins leaving Wales. So Anscombe and Lydia, another 2 big names, definitely going to be ending with Ospreys. Are they going to stay in Wales? We don't know. Most likely, I think they're going to probably look at more money overseas. Yeah, that's the news for this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts on some things. I might actually start doing some reviews for Rugby League because, Rugby Australia has done a great job piquing my interest for Rugby League, and after watching the game a little bit, giving it a bit more thoughts. I might do some reviews. Let me know your thoughts on any of the news this week, and I do appreciate you watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Yada yada yada. Thank you for watching. See you guys later this week for reviews. Cheers.